स्टार्ट करें? स्टार्ट करूं मैं? Okay, ठीक है. Good morning to all of you and welcome back to the current affairs session. This is Preeti Sagar, and in this session we will discuss all such important news and articles which were there in the discussion in the past week. So first article of today, that is about net zero. What do you understand by net zero? These days, many things, many discussions are going on regarding net zero or zero carbon emission. Ishmaq, please put off your camera. It's not required. Okay. So we are hearing such discussion on net zero. Basically, net zero that is related with carbon, or you can say that is related with climate change, or this is related to what? This is related to carbon emission in the climate, because carbon is one of the biggest component because of which global temperature is increasing. So many countries, or developed or developing countries, they are sharing one platform that is called Paris Climate Meet, or COP, or Conference of Parties meeting. So there they have discussed that if they want to put down the global temperature to prevent the world from global warming or increasing global warming, then what they have to do, they have to achieve some target. And that target is regarding lower down the carbon emission. Okay, so net zero ka yahan pe matlab kya hoga? Net zero means whatever carbon content. Ab see, countries or developing or developed countries, if I talk about, so these countries are developing or developed on the basis of industries, on the basis of some infrastructures. Okay, so if infrastructure development, industries are there, then obviously carbon emission would be there. In fact, for the generation of electricity, if we do not go for renewable one, what is happening? Electricity is based on coal thermal power stations. So in that, what happens? Carbon emissions are there in the environment. So carbon emissions would be there. But what is the meaning of net zero here? Net zero ka matlab ye hai that whatever carbon emissions countries will produce, countries will contribute in the environment, they have to establish, they have to construct the equivalent carbon sink. Okay, whatever they are producing, whatever is emitting in the environment, that had to be synced down, okay, by such countries. That is the meaning of net zero. Jitna upaj kiya, utna usko consume kar liya. Okay, so through which, what would happen? Through which the carbon emission or the effluents will not get assimilated in the environment. Okay, so that is the meaning of net zero here. What is that? When a beginner should start current affairs, how to cover it fully, please tell anything. Ishmaq, I'll answer your questions later on while I'll conclude this session. तब आप मुझसे ये सवाल पूछना, I'll give you some suggestions on this. ठीक है? चलो. So here, what is the content? Content is about John Kerry, that is US President's Special Envoy on Climate. So he is currently on the 3-day visit to India. Okay, and if US visit is there in India, and this person, this John Kerry, he is Special Envoy on Climate. So this meeting between India and USA, that is surrounded, and primarily it is on climate justice. That is primarily on climate change issue. Okay. So they are trying to rekindle a climate change partnership that had been all but put on hold during the 4 years of Donald Trump administration. So Donald Trump, as we know, he has taken many such measures which were not favorable for the world, for the country itself, USA, for India. But after, or you can say post-Trump administration, what is happening? All such actions, whatever has been taken at that time, it is now rephrasing. Okay, it is now reappearing. Okay, in different sense, or you can say it is totally contrast of what decisions had been taken during Donald Trump administration. He did not take much interest in climate change. In fact, USA had backed out from Paris Climate Meet or Paris Pact under Trump administration. But when Joe Biden, when he became US president, what he did, he became part of it. USA became part of it. Okay, part of Paris Climate Meet. It means now USA is also dedicated towards climate change or climate justice. Okay, so because of that, John Kerry has visited to India. It means India and USA will set out some common target, will set out some common decisions on which they have to work in certain periods. So immediate purpose of this visit, that is to exchange notes ahead of virtual climate leaders summit that has to be convened by US President on 23rd April, 23rd April, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is one of the invitees in that convention. So that is Biden's first big international intervention in climate change, and his administration would be keen to ensure a substantive outcome from it. It means USA after 4 years now, they are going to work towards climate change. So in that bid to reclaim the global climate leadership, so here USA is now reclaiming this leadership, okay, which had been backed out by USA under Trump administration. Now USA again stepping its foot into it. Okay, so reclaiming the global climate leadership, USA is widely expected to commit itself to a net zero emission target by 2040 in this summit. Few other countries like UK or United Kingdom and France, they have already enacted such laws which promising to achieve a net zero emission scenario by the middle of this century. So we have discussed about this in this session only, that EU or European Union, United Kingdom, China, so they have, in fact, France too. So they have declared their target. They have declared their target of net zero emission, and that was by 2050 or 2060. Okay. So UK and France, they have come up with the legislation on this. It means now it is legally binded on the country that they are going to achieve this net zero emission by 2050 or any other date, whatever they have set. So European Union is also working on a similar unified law, while many other countries, including Canada, South Korea, Japan, and Germany, they have also expressed their intention to commit themselves to a net zero future. And China, it has also promised that it is going to be net zero by 2060. It means these developed and developing countries, they are stepping together to achieve this net zero emission. Why? Because it is not only hampering their country, it is also hampering world, okay, global temperature. So India, that is world's third biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. So it is not only carbon, but other gases as well. Why? Because if I talk about methane, so because of swampy area, swampy like muddy area, okay. So if any mud or swampy area that remains for long, so that becomes a ground or the open ground for methane. Then livestock, that is also contributor of methane in large chunk. Okay, so in India, you can see such kind of resources. So because of that, India has become one of the third contributor of greenhouse gases after USA and China, and is the only major player holding it out. One of the objectives of Kerry's visit, that is to explore whether India can be nudged to drop its hard opposition and open up to the possibility of pledging itself to a 2050 net zero goal. So here it has to see by USA that whether India is also accepting this 2050 goal to achieve, or it will come out with such other provision, with such other target. So that USA is on the exploration with this meeting. So now what is the net zero goal? So net zero, that is referred to a carbon neutrality. So isko kya bolenge? Carbon neutrality. Why carbon neutrality? As I've said, whatever is being emitted, that has to be synced down. Okay. Acha, how you would go for sinking of carbon? With the help of afforestation. Okay. More and more trees had to be planted. Okay. Saplings had to be planted so that the carbon can be synced down. Then marine carbon sink can also be made. It means in the water, greenery had to be promoted. So marine sequestration, carbon sequestration field had to be made. Okay, so so different through different ways, these carbon sinks or carbon sequestration process had to be worked upon. So that doesn't mean that country would bring down its emission by zero. It is not possible that country would bring down their emission by zero. Okay, why? Because vehicular emission would be there. We are living in the growing world. We are growing day by day. People who used to be lived at poverty line, now they have improved their status. Even in India, many poor people are there, but still many poor, or you can say the generational poor people were there. So they have improved their status with the help of welfare measures taken by government, with the help of various for example, Annadata Yojana, or many steps had been taken by the government in India. Okay, so that helps them to improve their status. So now these poor people, they have improved their status, and they have now come to what you would call lower middle class. Then lower middle class, they have improved to upper middle class. Then middle class, upper middle class. So here, day by day, we are improving, we are growing. So in this growing scenario, in this growing situation, it is not possible that countries would not emit carbon. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? People, poor people, they have improved their status. Meaning is this: now their lifestyle would also get changed. Okay, lifestyle would also get changed, and vehicle is the symbol of that lifestyle. You know, earlier you would have seen, or you would have heard that people friendly vehicle was bicycle. But nowadays, how many bicycle you are seeing at the road? Okay, very few cycles you would see, bicycle you would see. So what changes it has brought? Bicycle people, they have now moved to bikes, motorbikes. Motorbike people, they have moved to cars. So it means vehicular emission that has increased day by day, and it will increase with the passing years. Okay, then industries set up, different industries would be there in the country. So what would happen? Emission would be there. Okay, infrastructure projects that had to be taken place, then what would happen? Other greenhouse gases would be contributed, would be emitted in the environment. So we cannot drop it down. Okay, but we can better control it. We can come up with the alternate measure. Jitna hota hai hone do, usko kya karenge? That we will sink it down. Okay, so rather net zero, that is a state in which countries' emissions are compensated by absorption and removal of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Okay, why we are seeing that global leaders, they talk about not to go for deforestation. Why? Because when deforestation takes place, so whatever carbon that tree has sequestrated, that tree has sinked down, that will release in the environment. Okay, that will release in the environment, and it will ultimately go for the increase in the temperature, global temperature. Okay, so that is why afforestation is being promoted. Okay, so absorption, how we will make absorption? We will make with the help of more and more tree plantation. Okay, so absorption of the emissions can be increased by creating more carbon sinks like forest, while removing gases from the atmosphere. That requires futuristic technologies like carbon capture and carbon storage. So this is the help of technology. Forest, afforestation to hai hi. Apart from this, you can take help of technology, and this technology will help you to carbon capturing and carbon storing. Okay, so this captured carbon, that can be utilized in different industries. So what you are doing, you are recycling it. That carbon which had tendency to assimilate in the environment, that you are capturing, you are storing it, and you are utilizing it in the another industry. Okay, so recycling process can be taken place. So this is futuristic technologies. So this way, it is even possible for a country to have negative emissions if absorption and removal exceed the actual emissions. Okay, so if removal exceeds actual emission, then what would happen? We will live in the world of negative carbon emission. Jitna हमने produce किया, उससे कहीं ज़्यादा हमने store कर लिया. Okay, or we have removed it. So good example is Bhutan, that is often described as carbon negative because it absorbs more than it emits because of afforestation, because of its greenery. Bhutan always top global happiness index. Why? Because it is very good. Their environment is very good. Okay, and environment का सबसे बड़ा factor क्या है? The greenery. Okay, so very active campaign has been going on for the last 2 years to get every country to sign to a net zero goal for 2050. That is being argued that global carbon neutrality by 2050 is the only way to achieve Paris Agreement target of keeping the planet's temperature from rising beyond 2 degrees Celsius as compared to pre-industrial times. Current policies and actions that is being taken to reduce emissions would not even be able to prevent 3 to 4 degrees Celsius by rise by the turn of this century. So if these actions would not be taken, then what would happen at the end of this century? We will cross or we will go beyond 3 to 4 degrees Celsius of temperature, global temperature. So now you are seeing a global temperature is somewhere 2 degrees Celsius, it has increased by, then we are facing too many climate challenges. If it will go beyond 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, then what would be the situation? You can see many deadly diseases would be there in the environment. Water problem, okay? Many consequences we would face if we will not control it. So goal of carbon neutrality, that is the latest formulation of discussion that is going on for decades on having a long-term goal. Long-term targets that ensure predictability and continuity in policies and actions of the countries, but there has never been a consensus on what this goal should be. It means they are discussing that they have to, countries, they are discussing that they have to control the global temperature. But what would be the goal? That has not been discussed so far. So earlier discussion used to be on the emission reduction targets for 2050 or 2070 for rich and developed countries, whose unregulated emissions over several decades are mainly responsible for global warming and consequent climate change. So developed countries, on the basis of industrial revolution, they have contributed injudiciously carbon emission or carbon effluence in the environment. Now it is seen or visible in the form of many consequences towards climate change. Okay, so net zero formulation that does not assign any emission reduction targets on any country, but it is going to work upon more and more carbon sinks. Okay, so theoretically, country can become carbon neutral as its current level of emissions, or even by increasing its emissions if it is able to absorb or remove more. From the perspective of the developed world, that is a big relief. Why? Because now the burden is shared by everyone and does not fall only on the developed countries. Okay, so that is why now, see, what was the situation? These developed countries, injudiciously, they had been fascinated because of industrial revolution. So they injudiciously emitted carbon in the environment. Now they are sharing this responsibility of controlling the carbon or going for carbon neutrality with the cooperation of not even developed countries, but also developing countries. Okay. So now it will be a shared objective. Now, so India's objection, whether India is objecting towards it or towards this goal. So India is the only one opposing this target. Why? Because it is likely to be most impacted by it. India's position is unique in that India is being projected as that it is the third biggest emitter or carbon emitter. So over the next 2 to 3 decades, India's emissions are likely to grow at the fastest pace in the world, and it presses for higher growth to pull hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Out of poverty kaise hoga? Government had to take welfare measures. That is another one. Okay, so welfare measure mein to kya hai? There is carbon ka role ho sakta hai. How government would take welfare measures? By giving food. Okay, by providing food and shelter. Now, if you see food, it means production had to be taken place. Production of wheat or rice. Okay, rice is emitter of methane. Okay, why? Because rice field is the major factor of methane or greenhouse gas. Okay, then wheat. So whenever you cut down these plants, rice plant or wheat plant, what would happen? The carbon, whatever it has been stored, it will release in the environment. So by providing food and shelter, or you can say welfare measures to take out those poor people out of poverty. Okay, so first is welfare measure. Through welfare measure, what I've said, how carbon is the factor. Now, if I talk about shelter, so for shelter, what government has done, it has given Awas Yojana. Now, if you see Awas Yojanas, if construction of houses would take place, then obviously it will release another dust particle in the environment, and dust particle, there is a certain limit of it. Because of that, what would happen? The minute or granules of dust that will also get contributed or emitted in the environment. Okay, so because of that, this has become another factor of carbon emission in the environment. Then vehicular emission, industrial emissions, big infrastructural projects. So too many things are there. So on the urge of which India has become third biggest contributor or biggest emitter of the world. Okay, so no amount of afforestation or reforestation would be able to compensate for the increased emissions. Most of the carbon removal technologies right now are either unreliable or very expensive, which India cannot afford. So carbon removal or capturing or storing, these are what? These are futuristic technologies. And that would need major chunk of money, which India is not able to pay, which India is not able to invest. Okay, and even if you India would go for afforestation or reforestation, do we have such lands to go for it? We don't have. Okay, we don't have much forested area. We do not have much available lands on which saplings can be done. Okay, so how India would do that? So India, that is why, is in the question mode. Okay, that is why India is on thinking mode. What target India should go for. So on principles as well as practice, India's argument are not easy to dismiss. Net zero goal does not figure in 2015 Paris climate. So net zero was not the basis of 2015 Paris climate, but what was that? The reduction, carbon reduction from the level of 2005. Okay, that was the goal of 2015 Paris Agreement. So new global architecture to fight climate change, that was the platform. So Paris Agreement only requires every signatory to take the best climate action it can, whatever is possible for them. Countries need to set 5 or 10-year climate targets for themselves and demonstratively show they have achieved them. देखो क्या होता है, एक चीज को समझो. There's a tendency. They are setting up a target of 2050. We are living in the world of 2021. It means a long mile has to cover. Okay, so if 30 years passed, we will see where we have achieved. So that is why this article is saying that these countries should set a smaller target and they should work upon it. If longer targets would be there, then there are many chances we will face ups and downs and we will not be able to achieve that target on the time. So if we will set 5 or 10 years target, then there would be some what is the term? Compulsion on which countries have to work. And then countries should assess whether they have achieved that target and where they are shooting to achieve the target. Okay, so other requirements is that targets for every subsequent time frame should be more ambitious than the previous one. Implementation of Paris Agreement has begun only this year. Most of the countries have submitted targets for the 2025 or 2030 period. India has been arguing that instead of opening up a parallel discussion on net zero targets outside of the Paris Agreement framework, countries must focus on delivering on what they have already promised. And India is hoping to lead by example. So that is well on its way to achieving its 3 targets under Paris Agreement and looks likely to overachieve them. Okay, so at the end, it is saying that whatever targets has been set during Paris climate meet, so there should be some assessment of it. Okay. So several studies that have shown that India is the only G20 country whose climate actions are compliant to the Paris Agreement goal of keeping global temperature from rising beyond 2 degrees Celsius. So India is the only country who has started working on this. And the actions of European Union that is seen as the most progressive on the climate change, and US are assessed as insufficient. Why? Because US had backed out in the past. So India's assessment, if we see, so it has already done many things, okay, on climate and many other countries. India also repeatedly points to the fact that developed nations have never delivered on their past promises and commitments. So India had been part of this agreement in 2015, and India started working on that. But India is blaming other countries, developed countries, that these kind of discussions are being taken place between these countries from the very past, but they have not done anything to achieve such targets. So why these countries are putting pressure on India to achieve some? Okay, so no major country has achieved the emission cut targets assigned to them under Kyoto Protocol, climate regime preceding the Paris Agreement. Some openly walked out of Kyoto Protocol without any consequences of it. None of the countries has delivered on the promises they have made for 2020. And even worse, in their track record on their commitment to provide money and technology to developing and poor countries to help them deal with the impacts of climate change. So basically, developed countries, they had put some responsibilities that they will help developing and poor countries monetarily as well as technologically. Okay, but they did not do. So India has been arguing that 2050 carbon neutrality promise might meet a similar fate, although some countries are now binding themselves in law. The law to bana diya, but there are chances that these countries only would not be able to achieve such targets. Why? Because they have set such a long time or long target. So it has been insisting that developed countries should instead take more ambitious climate actions now to compensate for the unfulfilled earlier promises. And at the same time, it has been saying that it does not rule out the possibility of achieving carbon neutrality by 2040 and 2060. And it does not want to make an international commitment so much in advance. So that is why India is trying to save itself to commit, okay, in the advance. Why? Because there are many things that had to be done, and it is not possible to achieve such, to go for such a long target and achieve that. So that is why India is not committing itself. You might have, we have discussed basically that India has not declared that when it is going to be net zero or carbon neutral. Okay, so these are such reasons of it. Any questions in this? Any doubts? You can ask me here. Any questions? Okay. बेटा कार्बन एमिशंस आर मेजर्ड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ पर्टिकुलेट मैटर, और जो एफ्लुएंट होते हैं ना कार्बन के, दैट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ पर्टिकुलेट मैटर. सो ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सम टेक्नोलॉजीज दीज आर बीन मेजर्ड. ठीक है दीनदयाल? चलो. Now, next article, that is about monetary policy. Okay, so recently RBI's monetary policy had met, and they have kept the rates, repo rate and reverse repo rate, unchanged. So what is the meaning of this? Okay, if they have kept these rates unchanged, so what is the meaning of this? You have, you might have heard about expansionary monetary policy or contractionary monetary policy. What are the meanings of this? I want to know answers from you guys. Expansionary and contractionary. Suna hai ye naam? Have you heard about these terms? No idea. Okay. Have you gone through your economy classes, Deendayal? Economy में तो शायद discuss हुआ होगा. Inflation and deflation. नहीं बेटा. This is not regarding this. देखो, it is related to inflation and deflation, but how? And not about deflation, basically inflation. देखो, inflation we know it hasn't started. नहीं, classes हो रही थी. अच्छा, you might have joined later on, or you might have joined in the next, another session. Anyways, listen. Expansionary or contractionary. Expansion का मतलब क्या हुआ? That monetary policy had to be expanded. Contraction का मतलब क्या हुआ? That had to be contracted. Okay, when? What happens whenever we see the economic situation? Inflation is on its peak. okay, and which is uncontrollable. So inflation बढ़ने का कारण क्या होता है? There are certain reasons. First reason we will say that because of lack of supply in the market. Okay, because of lack of supply and increase in demand. Okay, people, they have now started earning good. Okay, their livelihood has improved. So what would happen? They would have money in their hands, and these money had to be invested. These money would let them or led to increase in the demands of the goods. So whenever demands would increase of any commodity or any of the goods, and supply is less, then what would happen? The price of the commodity would get increased. That is called inflation. Inflation का मतलब क्या है कि एक set limit है किसी भी commodity का और वो उससे ज़्यादा बढ़ जाता है. That is inflation, hike in the price of commodity. So whenever people have money in their hand, and because of that demand has increased and supply is still the same or it has declined, then what would happen? Inflation would be there in the market. And inflation have many impacts on the economy. Okay, if inflation would be there, then what would happen? What are the consequences of inflation? Everything, not only commodities, but all such articles would get inflated. Unemployment be another reason here. Okay, that is another reason why unemployment is there. Okay, we'll discuss about that. So in that situation, what would happen? Whenever inflation, because of any of the reasons, whenever inflation takes place and it is out of control now, for example, monetary policy of India under RBI, what they have said that inflation should not go beyond 4 plus minus 2. Okay, matlab 4 to 6 is the band through which inflation should not be increased. So if it goes beyond 6, then control measures had to be taken by MPC or Monetary Policy Committee. So what would happen in that situation? It means inflation has increased. Then what government would do, or RBI under government would do? RBI would contract, it will go for contraction of money, contractionary measures. Okay, that is called contractionary monetary policy. How it will contract? It will contract. अच्छा अब देखो monetary inflation बढ़ने का reason क्या है? लोगों के पास पैसा है. Okay, and what would happen in that situation? Banks would also have money. Okay, people are depositing their money in the banks, and what banks are doing? They are lending that money to another beneficiaries. Okay, another people. So when they are lending their money, then obviously that has become a cycle, money from one hand to another hand. So in that situation, RBI under this monetary policy tried to suck out the excess liquidity or excess money from the market. Then they do some changes in the reverse repo rate and repo rate. Whenever inflation takes place and some changes in the interest rate takes place, that is called contractionary monetary policy. And what government would do? They would increase the interest rate. Okay, interest rate of repo rate, repurchase option, and reverse repo rate. Okay, reverse repurchase option. Acha, I'll come on this, Dharni. I'll come on this. ठीक है? So basically, जो आप बोल रहे हो ना, SLR, CRR, these are another measures. उनमें भी changes कर सकती है, but basically reverse repo rate and repo rate, these are biggest tools for the RBI to make some changes. Why? Because it is directly impacted the market. It is directly sucking out the excess liquidity from the market. How? If repo rate. What is the meaning of repo rate? It means repurchase option. Repurchase option means what? That commercial banks, they need money for further lending in the market, but they are shortening it out. Why? Because they have kept such money in their SLR, statutory liquidity ratio, and CRR, cash reserve ratio. ये another tools है, इस पे ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं जाएंगे, नहीं तो हमारा आर्टिकल रह जाएगा. Okay, I'll take out only those reverse repo and repo rate. So what would happen? Commercial banks will purchase government securities from RBI. So when they are purchasing these government securities from RBI, then what they are doing? They are paying money to RBI. आपके पास 100 रुपए है and you are purchasing something from the market, then what you are doing, you are spending your money, then you are now less of such money on which you have purchased that item. So that is what these commercial banks do. So whenever they require money, so what they go for, what they do, they go for repurchasing, okay, of government securities. Okay. So whenever RBI put pressure on commercial banks for repurchasing of government securities, then then what RBI is doing, RBI is sucking money from the commercial banks. And when RBI wants to, when banks wants to have more money, then they go for reverse repurchase option, or that is called reverse repo rate. Okay, it means commercial banks are lending money from RBI. Okay, so these are what contractionary and expansionary measures. So contraction कब होगा? जब excess liquidity होगा market में, then RBI go for contractionary measures. When RBI would see, then that deflationary kind of situation is there. When people are running out of money, then liquidity needs to be infused in the market. Then they will go for expansionary policy, monetary policy. So here, this situation, the current situation in the country, what is happening? Inflation, we are not in the post-COVID world. Again, lockdowns are going on. Lockdowns are imposed in many of the cities. Why? Because of second wave of coronavirus. So because of that, what is happening? Inflation has started increasing in the market. But what has happened? RBI, monetary policy has met, but RBI or under this monetary policy has not taken any of the actions or has not made changes in the interest rates. Okay, these are unchanged. So when inflation is there and people are spending more money on the purchasing of the commodities, they are running out of the money. Then there are many people on which loan outstandings are there. They have to pay huge EMIs. Then no such changes had been taken place in the EMIs. So that is the consequence of this situation, unchanged interest rate. Okay, so RBI under this monetary policy committee, they met over the last 3 days and they have decided to keep its short-term lending rate or repo rate unchanged at 4% in line with the market expectations. So no changes had been taken place. Central Bank has also announced a series of measures to inject liquidity in the government securities market and financial system. And announcing the monetary policy, RBI governor said that central bank will maintain its accommodative stance as long as required to sustain growth on a durable basis. Okay, accommodative stance, it means the stance on which they are on. Okay, so it will be unchanged till the time they sustain the growth on the day-by-day basis. So RBI's decision that comes in the mid of this surge in the COVID-19 cases that has been prompted many states to impose fresh curfews, restrictions, or many states has been imposed lockdowns. So that has triggered concerns over the economic recovery, which was under the way. Okay. So Indian economy that has started recovering, but again, this next surge of COVID-19 that has changed the. Acha, my speed is very fast. Okay, sure, no issues. Okay, what is that? Expansion related to increased purchasing power by projecting money into market by reducing repo rate and increasing reverse. That is true. Okay, chalo. So MPC or Monetary Policy Committee that has voted unanimously to keep rates steady and retain the accommodative monetary policy stance. So no changes had been taken place. Why? Because this basically what RBI is doing. RBI is just studying the situation. If situation comes, then they will go for some changes in the interest rate. Okay. So annual consumer price index based retail inflation rate that rose to a 3-month high of 5.03% in the month of February. And Monetary Policy Committee, they judged that this monetary policy should remain accommodative till prospect of sustained recovery are well secured. So so RBI, it is looking its way that we have to achieve economic recovery. We have to go for economic recovery. So to sustain this, they have taken this decision. Okay, so they are basically what they are doing. They have not changed or no changes had been done, and they are studying the situation. So in the coming time, if situation allows, then they would go for some changes in the interest rates. Okay, so projections of growth and inflation. What is the meaning of that? So retail inflation that is projected to stay somewhere around 5% next year. That is what? That is the retail inflation, durable, or you can say day by day inflations. So 5% in the fourth quarter of this year, financial year 2021, 5.2 in quarter one, and 5 point, sorry, and quarter two of financial year 2022. That had to be come down to 4.4%. It means inflation would go down by the second quarter of 2022 financial year. And in third quarter of the same year, it will be 5.1%. And RBI has maintained its GDP growth forecast at 10.5% for 2021-22. So that is the economic forecast. That is the growth, what RBI has forecasted for this financial year. So central bank has slashed the repo rate, benchmark lending rate by a total of 115 basis points. 1 basis points is 100 of a percentage point since March 2020, and coming on top of the 135 basis points of cumulative cuts since 2019. So it was on the 135 basis points, and it has come down to 115 basis points. Okay, that is 4%. So RBI has, so this is benchmark lending rate. Benchmark lending rate, it means banks would lend money. Okay. So other measures for this. So RBI will ensure orderly conduct of government borrowings program in this situation, inflationary situation. And in that respect, central bank announced a secondary market government securities that is called GSEC or GSEC acquisition plan, or you can say GSAP, GSAP, government securities acquisition plan, which will be worth of rupees 1 lakh crore for the month of April to June. So these measures are announced amid a tightening in the GSEC bond market, with the yields hardening and expanding debt requirement of the central and state governments. Amid the government plans to support a new asset reconstruction company being set up by banks, RBI has decided to set up a committee to review the working of asset reconstruction companies to ensure how better these entities can support the financial sector. Ab dekho, these asset reconstruction companies, these are what? These are an instrument to help banks to come out of the NPA situation, non-performing assets. And what all non-performing assets are? People who have taken loan in the large chunk, they are not paying their interest on time. And after 90 days, what will happen? It will convert it into bad loans. And after 120 days, it will convert it into NPAs, non-performing asset. Okay. Then what these ARCs will do? So these ARCs, they will go for alternative through which they can recover the money. So they will, what they will do, they will get all such assets what these people are having, and by selling it out, they will try to recover the money. So now RBI is looking out at this alternative, that how these ARCs or asset reconstruction companies can ensure better these can ensure the support for the financial sector or to the financial sector. Okay, so in the policy review, RBI decided to extend RTGS and NEFT payments. It means earlier it was 1 lakh. So up to 1 lakh rupees you can not for the RTGS and NEFT. So it has been revised. And for those what is that? Like Phone Pay or Paytm. So these kind of online platform transaction of money, they have also doubled the limit. So earlier 1 lakh rupees was the limit. Now they can send up to 2 lakh rupees. Okay, so these these changes are being taken place in this policy meeting, monetary policy committee meeting. So RBI decided to extend RTGS and NEFT payments platforms to prepaid payment instruments, white label ATMs as well. Okay, so these actions are being taken under this monetary policy committee. Now, any questions on this? You can ask me here. अच्छा एक बात बताओ, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड बाय व्हाइट लेबल एटीएम? आई थॉट एनीबडी वुड आस्क मी, या सबको पता होगा, आई होप. मोहर जी से अपना अभी पूरा एक आर्टिकल है, आई डिस्कस देयर. तो पूछना चाहिए ना, किसी को नहीं पता है, मैंने पढ़ दिया, आप लोगों ने सुन लिया, पूछना चाहिए उसी टाइम पे. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ व्हाइट लेबल एटीएम्स? You might have seen ATMs in the market installed, okay, installed ATMs which belongs to so and so banks like Indian Bank, State Bank of India, ABC Bank, whatever. But there are certain ATMs which do not belong to any of the banking institutions. मतलब वो एटीएम होते हैं जो कोई ना कोई नॉन बैंकिंग कंपनी उसको ओन करती है. सो दैट इज कॉल्ड व्हाट? व्हाइट लेबल एटीएम्स. These are being beholded by non-banking companies, okay, which do not related to any bank. ठीक है, जैसे कि टाटा का एटीएम कभी सुना होगा या देखा होगा. So Tata, I am saying that. So Tata, it is not a bank, but they are provided a facility of ATM. That is what? That is called white label ATM. ठीक है. बेसिस पॉइंट्स का मतलब ये होता है जैसे कि 4% है ना, 4% इज व्हाट? रेपो रेट. सो रेपो रेट का मतलब एक हर एक 100 के ऊपर, मतलब जैसे 400 हुआ ना, अगर 4% है तो कितना हुआ? 400 हुआ. सो उसको एक कैलकुलेशन के हिसाब से दैट एट एवरी 1% देयर इज 100 बेसिस पॉइंट्स. सो काइंड ऑफ दिस, इवन आई एम नॉट एग्जैक्टली श्योर ऑफ इट कितने पे कितने पॉइंट्स होते हैं. सो 4% को अगर सिंप्लीफाई करें देन इट विल बी समवेयर अराउंड 115 बेसिस पॉइंट्स. सो अर्लियर इट वाज 135 बेसिस पॉइंट्स. उसको डिडक्ट करते 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 गवर्नमेंट आरबीआई हैज कम टू 115 बेसिस पॉइंट्स. सो जो 4% है ना, उसको सिंप्लीफाई करके दे हैव कन्वर्टेड इनटू दिस. ठीक है. Anybody can use white label. आपको पैसे निकालने हैं, ATM is not available. If you would see any ATM holded by Tata company or what say Airtel company, you can go and you can take out your money. थोड़ा सा बस सर्विस चार्ज पे करना पड़ता है. White label is for people. Okay, white label का बस ये मतलब समझो कि these are those ATMs which are not owned by any bank, but this is useful for people. ठीक है. RTGS मतलब real time gross what is that? Real time gross settlement. Okay. And this RTGS and NEFT, these are what? These are sending money from one place to another in very limited time. ठीक है. ऑनलाइन ट्रांजैक्शन जैसे होता है ना, वैसे RTGS और NEFT है, उसका जो लिमिट है दैट इज वाइडर देन ऑनलाइन पेमेंट्स. ओके. ठीक है. Many things are there. Here you can see applied questions for जैसे GSEC acquisition plan है, so for about that details you should know about it. RTGS NEFT का जो limit वो हुआ है, क्या बोलते हैं, रिवाइज हुआ है, that you should know about. कितना हुआ है that is not important and that may be important, but ये याद रखना कि दोनों का limit improve हुआ है. Then online transactions like through phone pay, Paytm, their transaction limit has also been improved or revised, okay, or doubled, you can say. Too many things are there. पूरा का पूरा article ही applied questions पे based है. Monetary policy का detail आपको पता होना चाहिए. If RBI has constituted this monetary policy, how many members are there? That was in the news last year in the month of October, when the members of these monetary policy committee, they completed their time lag, and now monetary policy was lack of men. That is a monetary policy. They delayed their meeting in the month of October. Okay, so that you need to, there are many of these things that you need to understand. बिल्कुल रंगोली, आप व्हाइट लेवल एटीएम से मनी विथड्रॉ कर सकते हो और आपको क्या थोड़ा सा सर्विस चार्ज पे करना पड़ता है. देयर इज नो इश्यूज. एआरसी का एस्टैब्लिशमेंट फ्रैंकली इवन आई डोंट नो व्हेन इट हैड बीन. ओके, आपको बस ये समझना है कि एआरसी क्यों एस्टैब्लिश हुआ था एंड व्हाट आर द फंक्शंस ऑफ एआरसीज. दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू. यार ईयर कौन याद रखता है? कम ऑन यार, मुझे तो याद नहीं रहता. चलो, any more questions? No questions? Ishfaq, what is your question? What's your question, Ishfaq? Repeat it. अच्छा, this if I Ishfaq, देखो बहुत सारे questions है. If you are asking how you have to prepare for current affairs, that I have said, I will take your questions at the end. हाँ, article से related कोई question है, then you can ask me here. वो मैं अभी के अभी आपको समझा सकती हूँ. पर अगर बाकी के questions आपको ये समझाऊँ कि आपको current affairs कब से और कैसे पढ़ना है, that I will take at the end of this session. नहीं तो I will give you my email ID. There you can talk to me. Okay. About your question, Ankit. अंकित, आपने पूछा एआरसी का एस्टैब्लिशमेंट. देखो, बेसिकली एआरसी का जो एस्टैब्लिशमेंट था वो सारफेसी एक्ट आया था. पूछोगे सारफेसी एक्ट क्या है? दैट इज आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ योर इकोनॉमी. उसका डिटेल आप पढ़ लेना. सारफेसी एक्ट व्हिच केम इन 2002. So they recommended to go for this ARC. Why? Because 2002 the bank situation was not so good and NPA started growing. So because of that, they came up with, and too many corporate frauds used to be taking place. Okay, so to prevent the situation, the Sarfazi Act, they suggested to go for these asset reconstruction companies who will be third parties, and they will purchase the debt of those companies, and they will now convert those debt into equity. Okay. ऐसा था. आप उसके डिटेल्स आप पढ़ सकते हो. सो और कोई क्वेश्चन होगा और कोई डाउट हो तो यू कैन आस्क मी लेटर ऑन. ठीक है. चलो, आई होप इससे रिलेटेड कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है. देन आई एम मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन. और कुछ हो तो आप मुझसे पूछ सकते हो. नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल, दैट इज अबाउट इंसॉल्वेंसी रेजोल्यूशन ऑप्शंस फॉर एमएसएमईज. Okay, micro, small and medium enterprises के लिए insolvency resolution government has came up with. So what is that? Government has promulgated an ordinance allowing the use of pre-packs as an insolvency resolution mechanism for MSMEs with default up to ₹1 crores under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. We have seen the situation during COVID-19. Okay, COVID-19 के time पे क्या हुआ? Many of the MSMEs, they had to shut down, and because of that, many employees of these MSMEs, they had to temporarily leave the jobs. Temporarily, they had to shut down. Then, under the Atmanirbhar package, government came up with the economic package for MSMEs to give loan up to 500 crores. Something was that. Okay, मुझे exactly amount नहीं याद है, but प्लीज उसको एक बार आप देख सकते हो. So यहाँ पे मुद्दा क्या है? मुद्दा ये है that these MSMEs, these were hit hard during COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that, government had come up with the economic package for them. But still, this kind of situation, it was not that did not appear in a day or in the night. Many of the MSMEs, they were running out of money, they were running lack of money, they were running under losses. Okay, so under insolvency and bankruptcy code, government had come up with an ordinance that under this, if any MSME would go insolvent, मतलब दिवालिया अगर निकल जाता है, so for that, what would happen? Insolvency resolution mechanism for these MSMEs had come up with default up to ₹1 crore. Okay, अगर मतलब 1 करोड़ तक का कुछ ऐसा amount है which these MSMEs has taken and they have declared themselves insolvent, then for that pre-packs, okay, pre-pack is the that is the measure which government has come up with. So they can use that. We'll discuss what is the meaning of pre-packs. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah. So move has come soon after the end of 1 year suspension of insolvency initiation imposed by the government in the light of COVID-19 pandemic, जो कि आत्मनिर्भर package government has given. Government had last year also increased the minimum default threshold for insolvency proceedings from 1 lakh to ₹1 crore. मतलब defaulter जो कोई भी MSME है, if they go default or defaulter, then that limit has been increased up to from ₹1 lakh to 1 crore. मतलब 1 करोड़, मतलब पहले क्या था, 1 लाख तक का amount था that these MSMEs, if they become defaulter, then insolvency proceedings had to be taken place. But any MSMEs which are having capital up to 1 crores and they go defaulter, okay, so now it has been increased up to ₹1 crores. Okay, तो अब 1 लाख वाला नहीं, 1 करोड़ वाला तक का लिमिट हो गया है. Then they will, if they are not paying their money, they are not paying their dues, then they will be treated as defaulter, and then insolvency resolution would be taken place. So pre-pack क्या है? What is the meaning of pre-pack? So pre-pack is the resolution of the debt of those distressed MSMEs. Okay, and these pre-packs, it will pre-pack. Okay, मतलब insolvency का जो resolution है, so उसका क्या है? उसका pre-pack है. Some measures had to be taken in this. So these are what? These are resolution of the debt of those distressed MSMEs or distressed companies through an agreement between secured creditors and investors instead of a public bidding process. Public bidding process क्या है? मतलब such MSME had been set or had been declared as a defaulter or as an insolvent. So it will go for public bidding process. But now here what government has come up with, those MSMEs would not go for public bidding, but it will be go for secured creditor and investors. It means if any ABC, even if you want to invest in those MSMEs, you can go and you can claim over it. Okay, you can claim your quotation. Okay, so it will be a pre-packed agreement between creditors and investors. Okay, anybody if they wants to invest, anybody if they wants to give credit to those MSMEs for its structuring, okay, then this is the measure which government came up with the with this policy of pre-pack. Okay, so यहाँ पे insolvency नहीं होगा. If they declared themselves, then some creditors had to come in, had to step in, or investors had to step in, and they can invest or they can give credit to them instead of going for public bidding processes. Because these MSMEs, these are big providers of employment to those people who are having low skills or mid skills. Okay, so system of insolvency proceedings has become an increasingly popular mechanism for insolvency resolution in United Kingdom and Europe over the past decades. Under this pre-pack system, financial creditors will agree to terms with a potential investor and seek approval of resolution plan from the National Company Law Tribunal. So this National Company Law Tribunal, this looks out all such resolution processes for such companies or organizations. Okay, so under this pre-pack, they have to come in the agreement and agreement on such terms with the potential investors, and they have to seek approval for such resolution plans from the NCLT. So approval of minimum of 66% of financial creditors that are unrelated to the corporate debtors would be required before a resolution plan is submitted to the NCLT. And further, these NCLTs are also required to either accept or reject any application for a pre-pack insolvency proceedings before considering a petition for any CIRP. Okay. So, what such benefits of pre-packs are there over corporate insolvency resolution process, that is called CIRP? So, क्या इसके benefits हो सकते हैं pre-packs के? अच्छा, under NCLT, pre-packs can be rejected or accepted. Okay, so one of the key criticism of this CIRP that has been time taken for the resolution. This CIRP is what? CIRP is for the big corporates. If they got insolvent, then this resolution of plan is being conducted by corporate insolvency resolution process. Okay, these are being conducted into this. And for such small micro and medium and micro enterprises, for them, what is happening? Pre-pack agreements are being introduced. Okay. So at the end of December 2020, 86% of 17 ongoing insolvency resolutions proceedings had crossed over 270-day thresholds. Okay, so these many 1,000 plus ongoing insolvency resolution proceedings had already been crossed 270 days threshold. It means in these 270 days, insolvency resolution had to be completed. But here, more than 1,000, it means 1,717 cases are still pending of such resolution. So one of the key reasons behind delays in the CIRPs are prolonged litigations by erstwhile promoters and potential bidders. Okay, so because of lack of promoters and potential bidders, because of that, what is happening? These CIRPs or corporate insolvency resolution process is taking time to litigate such matter. So pre-pack, in contrast, is limited to a maximum of 120 days with only 90 days available to the stakeholders to bring out the resolution plan to NCLT. It means those creditors, potential creditors and investors, they have to present their resolution plan before the NCLT in the 90 days. And within 120 days, they have to come up or they have to implement that plan, resolution plan. So another key difference between pre-packs and CIRP is that existing management retains control in the case of pre-packs, while resolution professional takes control of debtor as a representative of the financial creditors in the case of CIRP. It means in the pre-packs, the management control retains in the hands of MSMEs only. Okay, but what would happen in case of CIRP? Control goes in the hands of representatives of those debtors. Okay, so experts note that this allows for minimum disruptions of operations related to CIRP. Okay, so why this pre-pack has been introduced? What motivation was behind this? So according to sources aware of developments, pre-packs are largely aimed at providing MSMEs with an opportunity to restructure their liabilities and start with the clean state while still providing adequate protection so that the system is not misused by firms to avoid making payments to creditors. अब देखो creditors money दे रहे हैं और investors are investing in the MSMEs. तो MSME तो उसी बंदे के हाथों में है ना कंट्रोल जिसके हाथ में पहले था. The person who is controlling, who is managing the MSME earlier, the control is in the hands of the same person. Only creditors are crediting money to the MSME or investors are investing money to the MSME. So here, if they are investing, if they are giving credits, then some safeguards for them are also being provided under pre-packs. Okay, so here restructuring of MSMEs are taking place. Pre-packs will help corporate debtors because in MSMEs, what happens? These MSMEs have sucked down the major chunk of population that has been provided employment to the major chunk of the population. So if they will be stopped, they will be closed, then what will happen to those people? We are dealing with the situation of, or dealing with the problem of unemployment in the country. If these MSMEs will be shut down, then what will happen? The unemployment would get increased. So that is why this pre-pack has been introduced, and under this, people, creditors or investors will give money or invest. Okay, and it will help, or it will give an opportunity to these MSMEs to restructure themselves, or restructures their liabilities and start with the clean slate, while still providing adequate protections to the system. Adequate protection, so that system of their working or function should not get misused. Okay, so pre-packs will help corporate debtors to enter into consensual restructuring with lenders and address the entire liability side of the company. So how are creditors protected from misuse by promoters to simply reduce liabilities and retain controls? So if creditors are crediting their money, then some safeguards need to be there. So how they would get such safeguards? So experts have noted that these pre-pack provisions had introduced by the central government also provided for adequate protection to ensure the provisions that were not misused by errant promoters. Okay, so government has come up with such protection. Pre-pack mechanism, this allows for a swift challenge for any resolution plans which proves or proved less than full recovery of dues for operational creditors. Just a second, guys. Just a second. Yeah. So under the Swiss challenge mechanism, any party or any third party, so they would be permitted to submit a resolution plan for the distressed company, and original applicant would have to either match the improved resolution plan or forego the investment. Matlab, you are owning any MSME and third party would they will they would come to help you, they would invest you. So this is up to you whether you would have to either match the improved resolution plan or forego the investment. या तो उसके साथ जाना या उसको reject कर देना. So that is up to you. Okay, so creditors are also permitted to seek resolution plans from any third party if they are not satisfied with the resolution plan put forth by the promoter. So they can reject if they are not satisfied with that restructured plan or resolution plan. So pre-pack is expected to be rolled out to all corporations over time as legal issues around the provisions are settled through case laws according to the experts. Okay. So that is all about this pre-pack, how they will work, and what is the meaning of this, and whom it will work. Okay, so any questions in this, you can ask me here. Any questions? No questions? Chalo, mujhe hi bata do. What do you understand by Swiss challenge? Threshold for what you are asking, Rangoli? What threshold you are asking about? अच्छा, its meaning threshold का मतलब एक limit, एक certain limit है, that is called threshold. So beyond that, if you go, threshold का मतलब क्या है? That 5 lakh, up to 5 lakh is the limit. So that is the threshold. ठीक है? A bottom line, what you say. देखो, creditors का protection कैसे होगा? That they are they have also given some permission to seek some resolution plans. Okay, through any third party. मतलब they can be they can be indirect creditors. The third party से help लेकर के they can present their plan. Okay, so some financial backup would be there. Okay, and अच्छा ठीक है, बताते अच्छा आप लोग बताओ, what did you understand by Swiss challenge? Have you heard about the Swiss challenge? किसी ने वो तो पूछा ही नहीं. And who has asked about creditors? Shyam Kumar. So एक term has Swiss challenge. What is the meaning of Swiss challenge? And Swiss challenge is the protection given to these creditors. Swiss challenge is what? That any project is there. So for that, they can go for some bidding. Okay, they can go for some bidding. In this bidding, what would happen? Acha, no issues. So what would happen? Whatever MSME is there, so their asset bidding का मतलब उसकी जैसे नीलामी जिसको हम बोलते हैं हिंदी what we call नीलामी, जैसे कोई भी उसका asset है किसी भी company का, and if you want to recover your money, then what would you go for? You would bid it out, auction जिसको हम बोलते हैं. Okay, so it will allow sellers to mix and match such features of both by open auction or closed tender. तो या क्या करोगे, कैसे bidding करोगे, या तो उसको auction में निकाल दोगे, but here public auction or public bidding has not been permitted, है ना. अभी हमने पढ़ा था कि public bidding के अलावा ये pre-pack is the resolution for the MSMEs. So what would happen? Government would come out with the tender. They will ask people to fill out their tender to give credit or to come up with the resolution plan. So what people will do? People will come up with the tender process. Okay, closed tender. So it will give the best price or to such assets of MSMEs. Okay, so whenever bankruptcy proceedings of any companies that goes, so this Swiss challenge that becomes a best feature to or best resolution. Okay, to help them in the monetarily form to give credit or to give to invest. Okay, so through which what you are doing, what creditors are doing, creditors are they can go for tender process. Okay, so with the help of tender they can get such tender. Then another thing is what? Third party. With the help of third party they can invest. Okay, चलो अच्छा मोहर, I'll take up your question. इसके पहले भी तो questions थे ना. Asset and liability. रंगोली प्लीज, सच में इसका मतलब नहीं पता. Asset and liability. अच्छा ठीक है, इसका बताते हैं. ओके ठीक है श्याम, तो क्रेडिटर्स को प्रोटेक्शन कैसे मिलेगा? थ्रू स्विस चैलेंज. स्विस चैलेंज इज व्हाट? ईदर थ्रू पब्लिक ऑक्शनिंग और क्लोज टेंडर. ओपन ऑक्शन और क्लोज टेंडर. तो ओपन ऑक्शन तो है नहीं, दैट इज द ऑल्टरनेट वे. दिस प्रीपैक इज द ऑल्टरनेट वे. सो जिसमें क्रेडिटर्स एंड इन्वेस्टर्स दे कैन infuse their money. So how they would infuse? They would infuse through tender or what was that? Tender था और एक और था ना, क्या था? Third party. Okay. और कुछ questions थे. Let me. अच्छा, did I stop my screen? Wait. I'm so sorry. Your chats are not. What all questions are there? Public bidding. हाँ बिल्कुल, public bidding similar to auction. That is true. Madan Ramu, I'm already speaking in English. अब कौन सी English बोलना पड़ेगा? I don't know. चलो. What all questions are there? Creditors are protected. Yeah. Misuse. Okay. Mohar, you asked about misuse. अब देखो, in any MSME, creditors had infused their money. Okay. And this money would not be using. For example, you are owning any MSME which is going on in the losses. Okay. Why it is going on in the losses? Because of certain reasons. Maybe you are not taking care of your MSME. You are not taking care of what such provisions government has put on the MSME, and you are not following those guidelines. And you have given, you have got money from creditors or from investors. So you do not misuse, okay, this fund. That is the meaning of this. Okay, whatever investments had been taken place, that had to be taken place in the that had to be utilized in the restructure of the MSME, not in the payment of those debts. Okay, restructure plan has to be given. ठीक है, चलो की मोटिवेशन का फर्स्ट पॉइंट. अच्छा ठीक है, डिफरेंस बिटवीन एसेट एंड लायबिलिटीज. मोहर आई कम ऑन दैट, आई कम ऑन योर क्वेश्चन की मोटिवेशन वाला. रंगोली, असेट और लायबिलिटी का मतलब ये है, असेट मींस व्हाट, दैट व्हाट ऑल होल्डिंग्स यू आर हैविंग. फॉर एग्जांपल यू हैव लैंड, okay, you have opened any company, so you are owning land, you are owning machineries, you are owning what say all such resources. Okay, that is what, these are your assets, that like for example you are owning such resources. Okay, liabilities are what, liabilities are on such all such dues what you have to pay. Okay, all such dues what you have got on the basis of your assets, and you have to pay such dues. These are your liabilities. ठीक है रंगोली. तो असेट का मतलब क्या है, वट एवर होल्डिंग्स यू आर हैविंग. लाइबिलिटी, वट एवर ड्यूज यू हैव टू पे. बेसिक डिफरेंस इज नोन बट वांट टू हियर फ्रॉम यू. ओके. चलो. Is in this the investor creditors won't own the share of MSME after resolution? Nahi, they will have their share. If they are investing money, obviously they would have some shares in this. They are coming up with the resolution plan, so inka kuch to share hoga. If they are in the tender process, then obviously they would have some protection in the form of those shares. ठीक है श्याम. चलो. Now what was that? हाँ कह सकते हो. ओके, देखो पहले क्या होता था ना, MSMEs, as I've said, these are the biggest provider of jobs in the country. और पहले क्या होता था, if small companies, if they have got insolvent, then they had only option to shut it down. अब shut down कर दिया तो क्या हुआ, जितने ड्यूज थे सब लेकर के चले गए. All such people who used to work in that, they are now jobless. So just to prevent that situation, they have come up with this. And if listing of the company would be taking place, or other provisions are there, so that had to be, that can go for. Okay. Chalo. Kya tha? Mohar, you asked about this key motivation ka first point you want to understand. So, dekho, what is the meaning of this? It means what motivation has given to those government that to the government that they have come up with this pre-pack resolution. So, according such sources, if development program has to be taken place, so pre-pack is largely aimed at providing MSMEs with an opportunity to restructure their liabilities. It means, for example, they are not able to pay their dues to the banks. They are not able to pay their dues to the creditors. So these liabilities that will be restructured. Okay, कैसे restructure होगा? It means, for example, if one MSME is having somewhere 500 lakhs dues. Okay, 500 lakh dues they are having, they have to pay. So that due, they can do? They can divide it into the parts. Okay, and certain time limit would be given. So in this certain time limit, this 500 lakh would be divided into certain parts, and in this certain time limit, they can pay. So restructuring of such liabilities would be taking place. Okay, and start with a clean slate while still providing adequate protections, so that system is not misused by the firms to avoid making payments to creditors. It means restructure had been taken place, and the money which has been got by the creditors or debtors, that can be used for the restructure of the MSME, not in the payment of not for the misuse by the MSMEs. ठीक है, तो उसको मिसयूज नहीं करना है अपने डेली एक्सपेंसेस में, और what's say making payments to creditors, but that had to be restructured in a way that this money they are going to utilize in the development of the MSME. Okay, for any company, what is required to run? Profit is required, profit is required to run. for the long time. So if creditors are investing their money, so they are investing not for the clearance of the debt to the creditors, but for the profit making. Okay, for the profit making. So whatever profit these MSMEs will make after giving credits by the creditors or investors, they can use those profit for the payment of their dues. Okay, so ये एक motivation है that has been given to the through which government has come up with the pre-pack resolution. ठीक है मोहर, समझ आया? चलो. Next article, that is about Prime Minister FME scheme. Okay, what is the meaning of that? So Ministry of Food Processing Industries. Okay. So Ministry of Food Processing Industries, they earlier launched an All India Pradhan Mantri Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprises. Okay, scheme. देखो, food processing, that is part of your GS paper 3. Okay, एक certain one single topic is there in your GS paper 3, food processing. It means food processing is having great weightage or coverage in the country, and these days these food processing are very they are gaining popularity with the help of government's intervention. So what is the significance of food processing? Basically, this food processing is what? The whatever is being produced in the on the grounds, okay, in the agricultural field, that had to be processed for the longer use. Okay, that had to be processed so that people can use it in the future time. Okay, or they can use in the future. Okay, so it will extend the durability of certain goods. Food processing or food processing methods, it will extend the durability of those perishable goods or perishable commodities. Okay, so and food processing, it is having if durability would get increased, then obviously storage would get increased. For that, better infrastructure is required. Then export of such items would also be taken place because of its good quality. Quality management is also needed. So too many things are there. So that is why food processing is having greater coverage and wider acceptance in the country. And government is taking their interest in this. Why? Because it is an emerging field in which many employments can be seen in the future, many developments can be seen in the future, its contribution in the economy can be seen in the future. Okay, so Ministry of Food Processing Industries, they have, earlier it has been launched an All India Pradhan Mantri Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprises scheme. And scheme is to be implemented between 2021 to 2024-25. And that is to implement at an outlay of 10,000 crores. This is not important. So Convergence of Ministry, what is the meaning of that? So recently, Ministry of Food Processing Industries, they had agreed to work with the Ministry of Rural Development to implement this PM-FME scheme. That is the convergence. So now they will work together with Ministry of Rural Development. अब सोचो क्यों? Because agricultural lands, basically, these are available in the rural areas. Okay, so for implementation of this program, this Ministry, Food Processing Industry Ministry, they have come in the agreement, or they have agreed to work together with Ministry of Rural Development. So Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihood Mission, operating under Ministry of Rural Development, is to work with the Ministry of Food Processing Industries to implement the scheme. So ministries, they have to provide seed capital to support the self-help groups. And accordingly, 40,000 had to be provided to every self-help group member. Now, do you understand by self-help group? Basically, in the rural areas, you will find some self-help group. So this self-help group, that can be in any field. That can be in the hospitals, that can be in the healthcare facilities, that you can find in the help of related to farmers. Okay, self-help groups. Then protection, women security. So for that you can find some self-help groups. Okay. हाँ, women तो है. Why? अच्छा, why women are there? Why majorly women are part of these self-help group? Because women have access to each and every houses, and women in the rural areas, they have got such good opportunities in the name of or on the name of these self-help groups. Okay, another employment opportunity, you can say. And they have easily they are accessible to each and every houses in the rural areas. Okay, so that is a preferably it is women who are being part of self-help groups. So these self-help group members, they would be given 40,000 rupees for the promotion and implementation of food processing industries as enterprises, or this PM FME scheme in the rural areas. So state rural livelihood missions in the states and UTs, they are responsible for identification of eligible beneficiaries. Okay. देखो credits का easily है या नहीं है, we cannot say that, because some of the self-help groups, and there are many self-help groups in every state. Okay, so some they have got money, some they have got, and you cannot say these are credit. Okay, if see, basically if these self-help groups, they have to function, they can only function with the help of monetary assistance. Okay, not on the basis of credit assistance, you can say, चाहे वो government से मिले either or through any third party. Okay, chalo. So these state rural livelihood mission, they will work on the identification of eligible beneficiaries of this PM FME scheme. So 2020-21, around 17,000, more than 17,000 beneficiaries had been recommended for seed capital support of rupees 51.85 crores. अब देखो, if these self-help groups are there, so what they will do? उनको 40,000 रुपए तो दोगे, लेकिन करोगे क्या उसे? What they will do? What these self-help groups will do? They will basically educate people or educate farmers to sell their products to the food processing industries under government. So here, what would happen? Farmers, they will, whatever they will produce after their sustenance, they will sell their produce at the good rate for the processing to those food processing industries. Okay, and beneficiaries identification, that will be taking place with the help of state rural livelihood missions, and whosoever wants to establish food processing industries, they will be given seed capital for the establishment of food processing industry of rupees 51.85 crores. So far 29.01 crore has been approved towards seed capital support, covering 6,694 enterprises. These enterprises, these are located in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Odisha, Meghalaya, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Tripura, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh. So these states are varying from the northern states, southern states, northeastern states, central states. Okay. So various food processing industries had been developed, and in the rural areas, two classification of beneficiaries you can see. One are the farmers, and another are those aspirants, or you can say aspiring entrepreneurs who want to invest in the food processing industries. Okay, so two categories of people or beneficiaries are there of this food processing industries in the rural areas. One are farmers who would sell their produce to the food processing industries, and other are those aspiring entrepreneurs who wants to invest or who wants to establish food processing industries. Okay. This is not necessary. अब देखो, AP mandis are, APMCs are there. Okay, APMCs है, but still, why many of the farmers, they sell their produce to the middlemen? होने को तो सब कुछ है, but this is up to the will of the farmers, or this is up to the education of the farmers and their need. Okay, कहने के लिए तो, and this is not mandatorily for the farmers that they have to sell their produce to the APMCs. If these food processing industries are being established or are to be established, and if farmers will get good money of their crops, then why they will go for APMCs, which is far from their houses? That will include transportation tax, transportation cost as well. So why they would opt for this? Why they won't go for this food processing industries? Why they would not sell their produce to them? Ultimately, farmers, if they are in the agriculture, dealing in the agriculture, then obviously they would get sell their produce so that they can get good money. Okay. क्या किस चीज का लीगैलिटी यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट श्याम? एपीएमसी को बेचना या नहीं बेचना, दिस इज अच्छा, मिडिल मैन यू आर सेइंग. देखो, लीगैलिटी का इससे मतलब नहीं है. मिडिल मैन को कभी भी लीगैलिटी या इलीगल डिक्लेयर नहीं किया है. Okay, they had not been declared, their act had not been declared as legitimized or illegitimized. But whatever they are doing, it is, yes, it is illegal, yes, it is unethical, but people are doing it. Farmers, they are waiting for 3 to 4 months to get the return whatever they have produced. So if APMCs would open after another month, and every state is not having APMC, they have SFAC, SFAC, they have another options. If these options are available after a time lag, then what they will do? They need money, so they will go for selling their produce to middlemen. Okay, they are running out of options. Many of the farmers, even I have seen many of them. Okay, so ये क्या है? This is the bad luck of our society. At one place we are talking about these big things, but at another place this is the reality of the agricultural society. Okay, so ये है. और and one more thing is there, as I have said, APMCs are not available in each of these states or UTs. And another thing is that not in the every rural area APMCs are available. Then what farmers will do? They are only left with the middleman option. So that is why these FMEs, FMIs, food processing industries, they are FPIs. So these are what they are stepping into the establishment of these industries, so that farmers, they can sell their produce to these food processing industries, and aspiring entrepreneurs, they can also get opportunity to establish their businesses. Okay. So Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, so that is also called National Rural Livelihood Mission, and under this, this Antyodaya Yojana, this has been given Day NRLM. Okay, so the new name has been changed to Ajivika NRLM. So that has been renamed in 2015, and program is partly supported by World Bank. So the aim of this program that is to increase the household income of rural poor. The scheme was begun with an agenda to cover 7 crore rural poor households, and under this, some welfare measures had to be taken, and these poor people would be given household income, okay, supported or financially backed by World Bank. So these are some important points what we can remember for your examination. Then scheme for formalization of microprocessing enterprises. So that scheme had been launched for the unorganized sector in India, and aim is to increase access to finances by microprocessing units, which also aims in compliance with the food quality and safety standards, and focuses on women entrepreneurs and aspirational districts. Okay, so these are some objectives of this formalization of microprocessing enterprise, PMFME. Okay. Any questions in this? You can ask. Koi question? No questions? Acha, 2 questions. What is the main reason behind food processing industries in India are not competitive globally, even they have accessible to raw material at low cost from farmers. Even many states don't get MSPs. Okay. Acha, Deen Dayal, you have asked about the main reason behind food processing industries in India are not competitive globally, even they have accessible. Dekho, food processing industries, first thing is that they are less in number. Okay, they are very less in the number. And government is focusing on these food processing industries by seeing its potentiality to provide money to the unorganized sectors. And that is why they are emphasizing on this. Food processing industries, it is not only about getting raw material, but it is also about getting proper funding. Okay, funding chahiye. Then you would need land. Okay, then you would need land or your land resource nearby the agricultural field. So too many lack of resources are there. Okay, then education of farmers. Okay, then whatever their produce are, they can sell to the nearest food processing industries, where tradition is there that farmers, they have to sell their produce to the middlemen besides reaching to the market or APMC. So how this tradition would be taken over taken over by the food processing industries in the very less time. So proper education is required. So too many lackings are there. That is why food processing industries are not flourishing. But government is working well in this. They have established mega food parks. They have established Sampada scheme. Okay, too many things are there for which government is working upon. Okay. बेटा इस वाले टॉपिक से क्वेश्चंस पूछो ना, टैक्सेशन सिस्टम पे बाद में आ जाएंगे. इफ एनी आर्टिकल वी विल सी. देखो, whether it needs to be changed or not, that is part of debate. I don't want to fall into that. Okay. चलो देखो, पहला तो श्रवण, your question is that even many states don't get MSP. This is not about MSP. You are misinterpreting it. MSP का मतलब, what do you want to ask? You want to ask about APMC, not MSP. जरूरी नहीं है कि APMC है तभी MSP मिलेगा. It is not required. If government would, Bihar has not established MSP, your question is incorrect. Why MSP is not covered uniformly all states like Bihar? देखो, MSP हर जगह है. MSP का मतलब ये है that government is giving, and whenever central government makes up any plan, if MSP is there, so MSP is for the entire country. But agriculture being the state subject, this is about the implementation by the states to give MSP to the farmers. But MSP जितना government, central government ने set किया है, वो state government का जो MSP होगा, that should not go below the MSP set by central government. ठीक है? So here in the not in the Bihar, in many of these states, MSP is available for the entire India. But what you are asking, that is about APMCs. APMCs, basically, it has not been implemented in each of the states and each of the UTs. It has not been implemented. For example, Bihar mein there is no APMC, agriculture produce companies. Okay, these are not available. But that doesn't mean that people or farmers, they would not get MSP. MSP का मतलब क्या है? That government had set the minimum amount or minimum support price for the farmers on which they can sell their produce to the government, directly to the government, not to any person or middleman. So it is implemented. Okay. Essential commodity क्या है? Law is amended to improve food processing industries to store the vegetable items like onions, etc. देखो, Essential Commodities Act का मतलब क्या था? Basically, the essential commodities, it means those commodities which are essential for the daily usage. So whatever changes had been done by the government in the Essential Commodities Act during COVID-19, what was the idea behind that? Idea was that in the essential commodities list, if onion, potato, tomato, if these will be added, so what would happen during COVID-19 pandemic? farmers were not able to reach to the market to sell their produce. And these items are perishable. Matlab, after some time, it will go perished. It will perished. It will ruined, rotted. Then what they will do? So wherever they would get good price of it, they can sell it. Chahe wo food processing ho or any third party ho. So they were allowed to sell their produce just to prevent the situation of rotting up of the commodities. If it will go rotten up, it will go ruined, it will go perished, then what will happen? Inflation of those essential commodities will be taken place. Okay, that was the idea behind this. And why these items had been kept in the essential commodities? Because government was regulating these essential commodities just to prevent the situation of hoarding, just to prevent the situation of black marketing of these essential commodities, so that farmers, they could not sell these essential commodities on the higher prices earlier. They should not hoard it. They should not sell these produce to the black market. In the black market. Okay, but the situation during pandemic, it was like everything was stopped. Lockdowns had been imposed, also, and harvesting had been taken place good in 2020. So to reaching out of these commodities to the market, it was required that it should not be regulated by the government. It should the regulation of these commodities should go out of the hands of government. Okay, that is why it has come up, essential commodities. Ab uske baad, what farmers have thought, what farmers have got basically because of the implementation, that is another thing. But idea was this. Okay, chalo. Next article pe pahunche. Next article. That is about solidarity tax on pandemic winners imposed by International Monetary Fund. So IMF has announced about the solidarity tax on those pandemic winners. It means those countries who got down with with this pandemic, but they won the battle. Okay, they win the battle. They controlled it very well in the certain time limit. So the companies that prospered during COVID-19 crisis should pay additional tax to show solidarity towards those hit hardest by the pandemic. So at one place, many countries, they worked well. Then at another place, many companies or corporate companies, they survived this pandemic. Okay, so what they have to do, if they survived this crisis, it means they performed well during crisis as well. So they have to pay additional tax to show their solidarity towards those who had been hit hardest because of pandemic. So this is solidarity. What they are doing, they are showing their solidarity to those people who had been the victim or who had been victimized because of COVID-19 pandemic. So this is an additional tax or temporary tax, and that is to be imposed to reduce social inequalities that increased because of health crisis. And it was introduced by International Monetary Fund, citing Germany's solidarity tax after reunification. So when reunification of Germany had taken place, Germany came up with this solidarity tax during then. Okay, so that has been reimposed by IMF to the world. All such companies who had been performed well, who had survived the pandemic, now they have to pay additional tax in the name of Solidarity One to help those people who had been affected hardly due to pandemic. Okay, so according to IMF, several countries are not facing the crisis in public finances, and advanced economies, they have borrowed 11.7% of their national income. Emerging countries, they have borrowed 9.8%, and low-income countries had borrowed 5.5% from IMF. So this is the low-income countries that are suffering the most even to achieve basic needs. And it becomes essential for them to bring in a mechanism that will help in their upliftment. So current COVID-19 recovery is uneven, unlike to that happened after 2008 financial crisis. So because of that, IMF had introduced this solidarity tax. So this tax had been introduced in the reunification in 1991 after East and West Germany, they joined together, and it was collected for only 1 year, and it was levied on the wealth in France, and also known as wealth tax, which has been paid by households with a net worth greater than 1.3 million euros. So first it was introduced in 1981 and then terminated in 1986. Again, it was reintroduced in 1988. Okay, so this is the background of the solidarity tax. Okay, so recommendations, what was made by IMF? So countries should invest in the production and distribution of COVID-19 vaccination. So what these taxes will do? Okay, so production and distribution of COVID-19 vaccination will be taking place. According to IMF, this will cost tens of billions of dollars, but will boost growth prospects to raise tax revenues in advanced countries by $1 trillion by 2025. So solidarity tax, that is a government imposed tax which is levied to provide funding towards unifying projects. And what kind of unifying projects? Welfare measures for the people. Okay, so it will act in the conjunction with the income tax. Matlab, additional tax hai, so in the income tax, it will be added in the name of solidarity. So this is an additional burden on the taxpayers, including sole proprietors, individuals, and corporations. Okay, so that is all about this article. Any questions in this? You can ask. Any questions? Or shall I move further? No questions. बेटा पहले तो ये that was reunification in Germany, reunification of Germany. It means West and East Germany, they unified, okay, in 1991. And how tax was paid? It was imposed by the government, okay, on those people who were working well, who were earning well. So on those people, and this is income tax, okay. So those people who used to be earned good, on them this must have been imposed. Okay, is there any criteria for solidarity tax for any country, or it is nahi. It is no, there is no any criteria. Criteria is only that who all have survived. This is not voluntarily. Okay, who all have been survived during this pandemic, on them this has been imposed by the government. This is not a voluntary one. Okay, this has been imposed by the government to pay. ठीक है, श्रवण? तो ये सबके लिए होगा who all companies have survived. And here you might have seen that these taxes would be paid by the individual corporations or sole proprietors. Okay, so additional tax burden would fall on these people who had survived. ठीक है, चलो. Next article, this is about RBI inflation forecast model has been amended. So RBI recently has revised its inflation forecast model, and new model will capture how fiscal and monetary policy interact with real economy elements in the better way. Okay, so what this new model is all about? So this new model has been broken into 3 blocks. So first block, which comprises or composes the primary deficit of the government into structural and cyclical components. Primary deficit kya hoga? The primary deficit of the government is about what is all about? Deficit except in interest payment. Okay, all such expenses of government, if it goes beyond the earnings. Deficit का मतलब क्या होता है? Expenses goes beyond the earnings. So all such expenses goes beyond the earnings of the government except interest payment. मतलब, for example, government has earned 5 rupees and its expenses is 10 rupees. Okay, so कितना fiscal deficit हुआ? 5 rupees का. So in the in those 5 rupees deficit, government has not included interest payment. Matlab these are those expenses which government has taken on the basis of day-to-day basis expenses. Okay, but in these expenses, interest payment had not been included. So this is what primary deficit. So in the primary deficit of the government, that has been decomposes of structural and cyclic components. Structural kya hoga? The structured way of the expenses or the deficit, and cyclical, it means the cycle of those debts or those earnings and expenses. Okay, then that is also called fiscal block. And structural increase in deficit or government will create a positive output gap. So it will, in turn, it will make borrowings costlier and eventually depreciate the currency. So whenever borrowing becomes costlier, depreciation of currency takes place. Inflationary situation will takes place. So if government is borrowing at the high rate, then obviously the monetary circulation in the country, that will also goes up. Okay, inflation would prevail. And inflation would be there, then it will depreciate the value of currency in India. Okay, so that means country will face higher inflation. And on the other hand, cyclical shock is negligible. Second block, that includes complex system of pricing in India. It means it will include those items like petrol, diesel. These are being priced on the basis of international oil prices, local taxes and exchange rates. And this block will be called fuel block. So you cannot control the fuel price. Why? Because it is dependent on the international oil price market. So third block, that is called balance of payment block. And this block recognizes the costs are associated with the spurts in the volatility in the exchange rate. So balance of payment means what? It is based on the volatile situation in the exchange rate. Exchange rate, it is also market driven. Okay, so inflation forecast model, it will based on 3 categories or 3 blocks. First is fiscal block, which will include primary deficit of the government and composes of structural and cyclical output gap. So whenever structural output gap would be there, it will create a positive output gap, and it will make borrowings of the government costlier, and inflationary situation would prevail in the country, which will ultimately lead to the depreciation of currency. Then second is fuel block, which is very complex one. Why complex? Because it depends on the international oil prices. Okay, so oil prices in India determined on the basis of international oil prices. Third is balance of payment block. Balance of payment means the current account and capital account. Okay, so it will also based on the exchange rate, volatile situation or volatility of the exchange rate. Okay. So how inflation measured in the country? Inflation, we have seen, that is measured on the basis of WPI and CPI. WPI is what? Wholesale price index, and CPI is consumer price index. Wholesale means it is bulk of the commodities, and consumer means retail. Okay, retail inflation. So consumer price index measured the weighted average of prices of basket of consumer goods and services like food, transportation, and medical care. So these are what detail. These are what every people requires in a day. Okay, measured by calculating the average of price changes of each item in the predetermined basket of goods. So on the other hand, WPI, which is measured on the basis of prices at the wholesale level. So these provides the pictures of inflation in the country. These two measures are there. Okay, any questions in this? You can ask here. Third block is balance of payment block. देखो balance of payment क्या होता है? The export and import taken place. Okay, what exports India is doing, what import India is doing. Okay, so whatever, and these imports and exports are in the current account or capital account. Okay, so the balance of payment is determined on the basis of exchange rate. Exchange rate means what? If export and import are taking place, then obviously India has to pay, India has to make payment, and India has to get payment. So these payments are done on the basis of exchange rate. Exchange rate means Indian currency should get exchanged in the form of dollar. Okay, in the form of dollar. So these exchange rates are volatile in nature. It means it can change on the basis of market demand. Okay, market prices. Okay, so if exchange rate would go higher, then inflation would be taking place. So this will be called balance of payment block. Okay. ठीक है दीनदयाल श्याम. So on the basis of these models, these three blocks, inflation forecast model would be taking place. So RBI would see what is going on at the balance of payment side, what is going on the fuel basis, fuel side, what is going on in the fiscal side, fiscal block side. Then on these bases, they will come up with the inflation forecasting for the upcoming years. Okay. Sure. Now, World Bank and IMF, they launched climate change platform for poor countries. It means poor countries would be given assistance by the developed and developing countries. Okay, so both the bodies or the organizations, they have launched a platform that to advise the poor countries on funding for the conservation and climate activities. Both these organizations or financial organizations, they will use the platform to factor climate change into negotiations about reducing debt burdens of poor countries. So poor countries, they had, as we have discussed one articles, that these poor countries, they had been hit hard during this pandemic. So financial organizations, they will use such platforms, and if they are not able to perform economically good, obviously their environment would also get hampered. So climate change, that also been taken care of. So that is why these financial organizations, they will use the platform to factor climate change into negotiations about reducing their debt burdens. Okay, so currently, according to World Bank and IMF, there prevails twin global problems, and these are need to restructure or reduce the heavy debt burden of the poor countries, and need to reduce fossil fuel emissions contributing to climate change. So these are two problems which both the financial organizations or institutions had identified, which world is tackling with. Okay, so solution of including climate change into debt restructuring process will help motivate sovereign lenders to write off certain percentage of debt of poor countries. So lenders, they can write off the debt burden of such poor countries. It means these poor countries, they do not have to pay their loan amount. Okay, writing off the loan amount. So basically, international financial organizations will negotiate in reducing the debt of poorer countries, citing climate change and COVID-19 crisis. And climate change platform is highly important as several poor countries, they are struggling to shore up their food supplies and infrastructure because of climate change. So they are struggling in getting the food supplies. So food supply is not good, and infrastructure is also deteriorating because of climate change. So countries are not emitting greenhouse gases in large amounts. They are bearing the brunt of the impact from the rest of the world. Okay, so this platform will address this issue. In the poor countries, what is happening? They are not able to produce more. They are not contributing in the climate change, or they are not contributing in the carbon emission. But what they are facing the consequences what developed and developing countries have done to the climate. So in that situation, World Bank and IMF have launched a climate change platform for these poor countries. Okay, and this platform will address this climate change issue only climate change, okay, by these poor countries. So advisors in the platform, they will include officials from United Nations, private investors, and rating agencies. Rating agencies like, let's say, credit agencies or Moody's. Too many rating agencies are there. Platform is supported by G20 economies too. Okay, and these countries like Chad, Ethiopia, Zambia, they have initiated the negotiations with the creditors under the new platform. They have already started creating negotiations, initiated negotiations. So apart from initiations of World Bank and International Monetary Fund, there had some other initiatives that will help to reduce debt of the poor countries. And one such debt is called Service Suspension Initiative. Now, what is the meaning of debt service suspension initiative? So like China, USA, and other G20 countries, they are providing some temporary relief to the poor countries by suspending, it means by writing off the debt of the poor countries, a debt service payment from the poor countries. So that is called what? Debt service suspension initiative. Okay. Any questions in this? You can ask. Any questions? Any doubts? No questions, right? Chalo, moving on to the next one, if no questions are there. RBI Consumer Confidence Index. So RBI recently has released the report of Consumer Confidence Survey. And this survey had been conducted in the major cities of the country. Over somewhere 5,000 respondents were there in the survey. So this consumer confidence, what is the meaning of consumer confidence here? Okay, consumers confidence, it means those people like us, okay, their confidence in the market or in the commodities, whatever are available in the market. So consumer confidence index that has been declined from 55.5 points in the month of January to 53.1 point in month of March. Future expectations that has also been dipped from 117.1 in January to 108.8 in March. And when this index had been measured is above 100 points, that means it is signaling optimism, and when it is below 100, then it will represent pessimism. So optimism, that is gone positive, the confidence is positive, and if it goes below 100, then confidence is negative. So most of the consumers, they are reporting or reported higher overall expenditure. And according to this survey, the scenario had to be continuing in the coming year despite the moderation in their discretionary spending. Discretionary spending means what? In judicious spending. Kuch bhi kahin pe bhi we are spending. Okay, no, what's say, spending fully in judicious. So consumer expectation on general economic situation and employment situation for the year ahead was also pessimistic. And how consumer confidence would be built up? Consumer confidence can only be built up when they are earning good, when they are having jobs, when they are having employment. Okay, then they would be more confidence. So survey measure consumer perception on 5 economic variables like employment, economic situation, price level, it means inflation or deflation, then their spending and what they are earning, the income. So the confidence survey has 2 main indices, namely current situation index and future expectations index. So future expectation index, that is measuring the consumer thinks about the change in an economic issue 1 year ahead. And current situation index, that is measuring the change in the consumer perception over an economic issue in the last year. So consumer confidence survey is conducted every 2 months by RBI, and which has been conducted to measure how pessimistic or optimistic consumers are regarding the financial situation in the country. So survey had been conducted through telephonic interviews, and it had been conducted in such cities like Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Lucknow, Patna, Thiruvananthapuram, Mumbai. Okay, in these cities, this confidence, what's a consumer confidence index survey had been taken place. Okay, so here you can see this consumer survey index has been confidence index has been declined from 55.5 to 53.1. It means it was already in the pessimistic position. It was already in the pessimism, because beyond 100 it is optimism and below 100 it is pessimism. So it has already been pessimistic and still it has gone declined. Okay. Any questions in this? Any questions, guys? No questions, right? Anyways, I'm moving on to the next one. GSEC acquisition program, that is called GSAP 1.0. GSAP 1.0. So keeping policy rates unchanged, Reserve Bank of India has sought to quell the concerns of market participants over rising bond yields. As I've discussed one article regarding unchanged interest rate by MPC, Monetary Policy Committee. So what RBI is, and I have discussed few things about GSEC acquisition program. Under this GSEC acquisition program, government securities are available for the banks to yield, okay, for yielding their money into it. So reiterating the RBI's commitment to maintain the current accommodative policy stance until the economy is back on track. So that is why RBI had not gone for the changing of interest rate. Okay, so governor or RBI governor, they have come up with the new program called Government Securities Acquisition Program, through which banks will purchase government securities worth rupees 1 lakh crore in the first quarter of financial year 2022. And RBI has also announced that it will continue with the variable rate reverse repo rate to suck excess liquidity. So variable rate in the reverse repo will be seen by the RBI to suck out the excess liquidity from the market. Okay. So while 10-year GSEC bond yields dropped 0.6 to 6.08%. Okay, it means government securities purchased for 10 years, that has been dropped by 0.6%. Now it is 6.08%. It will be interest rate would be at 6.08%. So what is the meaning of such announcements? So in the backdrop of government's elevated borrowings for this year, RBI had to ensure goes through without causation disruption. And GSAP aims to provide more comfort to the bond market and which has been said by the market participants. So at the same time, liquidity is already in the large surplus, and RBI continued, or it will continue with variable rate reverse repos at the short end. And reverse repo is what? That RBI is providing government securities to the bank. They are selling their government securities to the bank. Okay, so through which what they are doing, they are sucking out the excess liquidity. If commercial banks will purchase government securities, then they have to give money. They are purchasing that, they have to pay money to the RBI. So through that way, what they are doing, they are giving money to the central bank. So this is sucking out of the excess liquidity through the market. Sorry, from the market through commercial bank. So currently 10-year government security yield is over 6% and yield on 5-year government security is around 5.6%. And on 3-year it is under 5%. This is somewhere 4.8%, 85%. It means for certain years on for which government securities are being purchased, these will be charged at these interest rates. Okay. So what are the benefits of GSAP offer? So market participants, they say they have always wanted to know RBI's open market operation, purchase calendar. And RBI has now provided to the market through this announcement of GSAP. So these government securities or GSAP will be available in the market for different players to purchase. So open market operation is what? Through open market operation, the selling and purchasing of government bonds takes place, government securities takes place. Okay. Report by Edelweiss Mutual Fund states that it will provide certainty to the bond market participants with regard to RBI's commitment to support to the bond market in financial year 2022. And RBI has purchased somewhere around 3.13 trillion worth of bonds from the secondary market in the financial year 2021. Secondary market is what? Stock exchange. Okay. So it was carried out in an ad hoc manner with the market awaiting RBI open market operation, purchase announcements with bated breath on weekly basis. And structured purchase program of similar size, such as this will definitely claim investors' nerves and help market participants to bid better in the scheduled auctions and reduce volatility in the bond prices. So report has noted that the announcement of this structured program will help reduce the spread between the repo rate and the 10-year government bond yield. And in turn, it will help to reduce the aggregate cost of borrowing for the center and states in the financial year 2022. So basically, the sale and purchase of the government security and the objective of this GSAP program is to what? Is to suck out the excess liquidity from the market, to control the inflation from the market, sorry. So how it is going to be impacted? So Bombay Stock Exchange Sensex had fallen in the month of February and March, and because of rising bond yields. Okay, and RBI announcement about GSAP in its monetary policy announcement, 10-year government security bond yield dropped by 0.6%, and it is now available at 6.08%. So rise in bond yields led to weakness in the equity markets, and yields will once again stabilize. With this, FPI inflows, foreign portfolio investments, inflow into equities could regain momentum. So FPI would be seen excessively in the market. Okay. So government securities, these are what? These are debt instruments which are being issued by government of India to borrow money. And there are two types, namely short-term instruments that gets matured in 91 days and long-term instruments that get matured anywhere between 5 years to 40 years. Okay, so through these government securities, Government of India borrows money from the different markets. Okay, external or internal market. Okay, any questions in this? You can ask me here. Beta, are you guys online? Why no one is responding? Previous slide. Okay. Is this the one what you are talking about? Okay. So basically, इसमें क्या है that government has or RBI has come up with the plan how they are going to GSAP affect the repo point. देखो, basically GSAP is what that government has to, RBI has to sell out the government security or purchase the government security. Okay. अच्छा ठीक है, आते एक के बाद एक आते हैं. बेसिकली ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन क्या एक सेकेंडरी मार्केट है in which government securities are being sold and purchased. Okay, are being sold and purchased. वो एक open market operation है. This is a virtual platform on which government securities are sold and purchased. ठीक है. Now come on your point, your doubt about GSAP. Okay, how it is going to be affected. अब देखो government securities are being purchased by the RBI. कहाँ से परचेज करेगी? अच्छा, गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज, these securities are of government, okay, and the holder of these government securities is RBI. So RBI is the holder, or RBI is holding these government securities, and these are such instruments which helps to control the inflation, expand and contract, okay, whenever situation demands, whatever situation demands. ठीक है. अब ये GSAP क्या किया? पहले क्या था? ईयरली और फॉर शॉर्ट टाइम और लॉन्ग टाइम these securities had to be purchased through open market operations. But now under this GSAP, government security acquisition program, so what is happening? These bond yields or government securities, these are given for certain 10-year time period at certain interest rate. Okay, so it is helping out RBI to suck out excess liquidity from the market. ठीक है. कैसे? अब बैंक को अगर गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटी परचेज सेल किया, ठीक है, बैंक ने खरीदा, what bank will do? Bank had to pay certain amount when they are purchasing these government securities. ठीक है. So what would happen? Bank has paid the amount, the liquidity amount to the RBI. So the liquidity which bank was having, now they are less in that. So banks are not having such money to lend outside. Then it will help to control inflation. It will help to control monetary money circulation of money in the market, and it will help to control inflation. Okay, so earlier those who wanted to purchase the government securities, so they wanted to have open market operation calendar of RBI. Okay, but RBI now has provided that to the market through this announcement on GSAP. So GSAP is available to these people. Now they can sell and purchase throughout any time of the year. Okay, so open market operation क्या है? That it provides a platform about government securities. Okay, and GSAP, how it is going to affect? Acha, now GSAP's effect on repo rate and reverse repo rate. Basically, this GSAP, whenever RBI is selling government securities, so what they are using reverse repo rate, reverse repo. Okay, they are sucking out the money. Okay, Sham. ठीक है. Any questions? समझ में आया? पहले तो ये बताओ. It's okay. Once you go through the basic concepts, 12th का NCERT पढ़ो, macroeconomy, you will be cleared. All such doubts will be cleared. Okay, so it will no more difficult for you. Once go through the basics of the economy, then go for the higher one. अब बहुत interesting है. अगर एक बारी if you would be able to understand all such terms and terminations, then it will not be difficult for you. पहले समझो बैंकिंग कैसे होता है, monetary policy, how it works, what are the functions of RBI, what are the responsibilities of government and what are the responsibilities of RBI towards government, towards market. Then you would be able to understand all such typical terminologies. ठीक है, ज़्यादा difficult नहीं है. I would recommend you to read 12th NCERT macro one. ठीक है, चलो. Any more doubts, guys? In any of the articles, you can ask me here. GSAP comes under government liability. देखो गवर्नमेंट का liability नहीं है ये. Okay, government can earn on this. Government can earn on this. Okay, so a kind of asset it is there. Government securities. Okay, these are some instrument papers on which government can earn foreign investments as well. So this is not liability for them. This is a source of income for them. Okay. Chalo. Any more questions, guys, related to this? It has to repay that amount. नहीं, it do not have to repay that. बेच रहे हैं, खरीद रहे हैं through RBI, so they do not have to pay amount on this. Okay. They do not have to pay anything. Any more doubts, guys? Term premium, what you have asked about Mohar, this is the term which has been used by Axis Bank ne use kiya tha regarding this GSAP. Basically, this is nothing. This is about government securities term, whether short term or long term. तो उसके लिए एक ये term use किया, term premium. What we call term premium, है ना? Term premium we say. Okay. So for that, it has been used as term premium because this GSAP, this is for what? This is for 10-year. This is a 10-year yield program. Okay, so government securities, these are available for short term, 91 days, for long term. So for that, they have used this term premium, which depends on the interest rate of the bonds. Okay, or bond maturity. Basically, what happens if government is selling bonds through RBI, okay, and basically iska jo kaam hota hai, whatever their maturity periods are, whether short term or long term, so these will help to you can say that they have to pay in that way in the maturity time period. If they are getting, one more thing is there, I have discussed that on the basis of these GSAP, it is easier for government to get investments. Her screen is not available, it is not visible. Why? Because all such articles I have discussed so far. Okay, that is why we have no more articles to discuss about. So what I'm saying, Shyam, there was one thing that we have discussed in this article, that government, for foreign portfolio investments would be easier for the government. So portfolio means what? Portfolio means that in the institutional investments government will get. So foreign companies, they will invest in various portfolios. So what they are doing, basically they are investing into it. So yahan pe kya hai? And these investments, these will be in the form of those selling and purchasing of bonds. Okay, so maturity hogi, then might be government had to pay. Okay, or maybe not. So this is on the basis all such be controlled by the RBI. Okay. चलो और कोई डाउट? चलो, so all such articles we have discussed today. कुछ और doubt होगा, you can ask me later on, or you can email to me. Thank you so much.